what led you to discover Keynes? That's point number one. That's question number one. And secondly, once you discovered Keynes, what generated that interest? Okay, fine. I want to go ahead and study Keynes in great depth, which I do for companies in my portfolio.
So what led to identify? Okay, it's an interesting story. Basically, in investing, typically it's all about pattern recognition, right? So you recognize a pattern, and that should evolve. If that has happened multiple times in the past, there is a high probability that it will continue to happen. So one such pattern is emergence of subsector from already matured sector. So let me take an example. If you see pharma as a matured sector in 2000 or 2010, in that decade, API has emerged as a subsector from pharma, and then from 2010 onwards, API has went on to become a subsector on its own, which had its own high growth phase, etc. Similarly, in 1980s, 1990s, we have seen banks. In early 2000s, NBFCs emerged from banks. And then from 2010 onwards, we have seen HFCs, housing finance companies, further emerging from NBFCs. And then HFCs took off. And then you have MFIs, microfinance subsector, taking off. Multiple such examples, IT, AI, or automotive and EV. So you have a whole lot of examples in that. And similarly, in the last 4 or 5 years, electronics, which we assume is already kind of a matured market, which is not, by the way, but if you assume electronics is a matured sector in itself, ESTM, which is part of electronics, is emerging as a subsector by itself. And it is going on to become the next phase of growth for this particular sector segment. That's one thing. Second thing, this combined with, if you in Indian markets, if you see a bunch of IPOs in one particular sector comes at a very close proximity of time. During 2016-17, you have seen Equitas and Ujjivan coming, and Satin Credit Care coming up with IPO, and then MFI has kind of further boomed. And then other example is Lalpath and Therocare. They also listed in very close proximity, 3 to 6 months, if my memory serves correct. And they went on to become the pathological subsegment of healthcare. Now, what we have seen is Keynes, Sirma, I think Avalon have listed more or less at same point of time and generated that curiosity among investors to see, hey, something is happening here. Let's see what in that. Okay, so that's how we turned our heads or our focus on ESDM. In ESDM, we've gone through multiple companies and not name obviously Keynes competitors, but Keynes is in that particular phase, place of the segment where it is high margin and low volume. There are players where they want to cater to, it's their business choice, business growth strategy. They want to cater to low volume, high volume, low margin businesses. But Keynes sticked around with high margin, low volume. We are okay with low volume, but we want that high margin. So that kind of garnered my interest. So that's where I dig deeper into Keynes.